Wow, that's Kris Davis. We'll be talking to her today. This is Dave Douglas speaking. You're listening to A Noise from the Deep, the Greenleaf Music Podcast. Thanks for listening. You can get all of our episodes wherever you got this episode. So whether it's the greenleafmusic.com website or iTunes, there's plenty more episodes. And I'm really excited to be talking about new music with Kris Davis today. Send me a message. I love getting your emails at podcast@greenleafmusic.com, or accost me in a live situation. A lot of people have come up to me and said how much they enjoy the podcast, and that's great because we're recording it in a small room in isolation and we have no idea. So it's always good to hear from people who are checking it out. There's lots going on at the label as the year comes to a close. This episode you'll probably get right after the first of the year, and so I hope you had a good holiday and vacation, and welcome back. So we were listening to a track called Massive Threads from the album Massive Threads by Kris Davis on Thirsty Ear from about 2013. And so you heard a section of the piece where there's actually overdubbed two pianos, and it was originally written for 6 pianos. So Kris is obviously somebody who seems to like the piano. Hi, Kris.
Yes, I like the piano.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise.
So it's solo playing. You do a lot of solo playing.
I do,
But
yeah.
this piece somehow is a expansion of the ideas of that, would you say?
I guess I had the chance to write, when you get 6 pianos in a room, and so this opportunity came up to write this piece for Bang on a Can, and so my, attempt sort of in that first section was to, almost make it like you're in a room and you're just hearing all these people talking, and you can't really make out any sort of specific conversation in this situation, melody, or even specific rhythm or loops going on. It's just really like a sort of chattering going on.
And is your process that you conceive of that beforehand, or is it a very improvisatory approach?
No, it's conceived beforehand, pretty much. So, when I gave them the piece, I sort of had, 4 or 5 different rhythms written out and then improvise in this style, and then that would create the effect of this chattering going on. So yeah, a lot, the piece is long. There's sort of 3 different sections to it, and each one is mapped out. And when we performed it at Bang on a Can, I felt like it didn't really come out the way I wanted it to, and part of that was just the room. It was so reverberant.
What room was it performed
It
in?
was in that hall down by, what is that area called, like over by the World Trade Center?
You mean the Winter
Chambers
Garden?
Street. Yeah, Winter Garden.
In the financial district.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's a
very-
shopping mall, right?
It's a boomy room, yeah.
It's boomy.
Lots
so
of glass.
Yeah, exactly. So 6 pianos sort of chattering away.
Wow.
I think it sort of lost its effect. So I wanted another shot at it. So I
But
tried.
you recorded it for Thirsty Ear.
I recorded it for Thirsty Ear.
And you played all the piano parts.
Yeah. And, I felt like maybe 6 might be too much for this recording specifically. So, tried it out with 2 and tried to capture that effect on this recording without all the reverb.
Seems to be. It's funny because procedurally it reminds me of that Lenny Tristano stuff where you've heard that obviously.
Yeah, sure. Like line up.
And but this is so different. So this chattering, Massive Threads sounds like something vaguely internet related of people shouting at each other. And so when you wrote it, are there different time signatures going on, or how would you say you went after getting the effect?
Not really. It's sort of, these rhythms are like one bar of everybody was supposed to play major seventh chords. So that was.
But are they vertically, rhythmically interlocking, or are they independent?
No, it's just, like cue, here we go.
Do this
we
for
dive
this amount of
in,
time, and then
you're playing these sorts of, sort of dotted 8th, 16th note rhythms in the style of this improvisation, which is something I do often, where I give someone a direction and the kind of improvisation that I want to fit with the piece and the compositional approach. So that was this one.
That's cool. And probably as a performer, it must have been interesting to have to read your own instruction and sort of.
Totally. And then hear the piece for the first time, in that moment, and trying to, figure out what was going on with the sound and hear everybody's parts. And of course they're improvising. And so I want to hear what that is. It was a whirlwind.
Yeah. But when you're performing your own work as a pianist, I'm just curious, everyone's different about this, but do you separate yourself from the composer mind when you go to perform, or do you still feel like you're coming at it as a performer from the perspective of having written it? And conceived it?
I think the composer mind is still there. Often I'll set these sort of, for myself, for solo playing, sort of framework, and I know that's what I'm going to use to create the improvisation, but of course I don't know like how long it is. I'm sort of feeling out the pacing in the moment. So I don't know, the composer and improviser thing, it's not really separate for me in a way. It's very interlaced and interlocked.
So I want to play this track. This is from the same album. It's called Sorcerer's Apprentice. And I'd imagine there's some of these same things going on for you, but let's listen to a bit and then we'll talk about it. Sorcerer's Apprentice. So we were talking before this, we started recording this conversation, and we agreed to not decide whether we would say Ligeti or Ligeti. But you say that this is based on one of his compositions, an etude?
Yeah, his etude number 10. It sort of has this gamelan effect, and his piece is played much faster, but it's really two notes, G and A, and then you're playing that with your right hand, and then the left hand comes over and plays another A. So it's like three notes, in a row that just keep repeating, and then it starts to span out, adding things, changing the sort of rhythmic pattern. So it's interesting, like, technique, I guess. I just found it an interesting way of playing repeated notes, and then also seeing how the harmony expanded in that piece. And it's a different effect because I use preparation to sort of realize that sense of rhythmic overlap. It comes out in different ways based on what the preparation is.
Is there preparation in his piece?
No, it's not prepared.
So you added what's the preparation? What do you do? What do you do to the poor piano?
Well, there's some eraser and some
like a gum, like a rubber eraser.
Yeah, like an end pencil eraser. I just cut little slashes in it, and it fits in the strings.
It fits over
perfectly.
the string.
Yeah, kind of in between. And some clothespins. I'll put those in, and maybe some screws, but I don't always use those because metal is not that great for the piano. But depends on the situation.
I imagine you've gotten in trouble from time to time.
I have.
For putting things in the piano.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Wow.
But wood and erasers don't hurt the string, so.
Yeah. Do you use masking tape too?
I
Sometimes?
use gaffer's tape.
Gaffer's tape.
Although on this one I didn't. That was sort of something I discovered recently that I've been using more.
Gaffer's tape.
Gaffer's tape. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. But you do a lot of preparation, I've seen, as an improviser.
Yeah, although I don't feel so fluid with going in and out of the piano. Like, Sylvie Courvoisier is so great at, she seems to be very fluid with moving in and out and so quick with the preparations. I've tried, but it doesn't seem natural to me. So I sort of set them up and then try to work within what's there. And that's actually like a big part of my concept when I'm improvising too, is just working with whatever happens. It's like a drummer showing up playing on a kit and not knowing what he's going to have, and then just dealing with the sounds. And so this is the piece is the same sort of approach where I put these preparations in, but I don't really know where I was putting them in the string.
On this piece, Sorcerer's Apprentice.
On this piece, yeah.
Wow.
So then I would, come upon these sounds and then try to.
And that goes for the recording too. Again, a Thirsty Year record from 2013, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Did you tell the record producer that you didn't know where the preparations were going to fall?
There's no producer on this one.
Well, yeah, that happens in the music we make, doesn't it? Wow, that's really interesting because it sounds to me like you made some real decisions. So it's more like you play with what you find as you go along.
Yeah, I mean, I'd been doing it. I just been on tour, so of course I found sort of zoned into some things, that sounds that I liked, and also, I knew where in the range of the piano I wanted to stay. So, it wasn't like I was reaching way out, to the high notes and surprising myself, whatever. But, and also it just sounds different on every piano. It's like, and sometimes the strings cross over in different places. And so it's hard to completely plan how the preparation will work.
This recording that you and I just made together, you did a lot of prepared piano. I mean, we talked about it a little bit before the session. And the music was very improvised, but in listening to the tapes that are be coming out throughout the year, it sounds really fluid. The
Thanks.
preparations, I'm listening along to a track, and then suddenly I hear some dampened strings and what I would describe as, I guess maybe I wouldn't describe it. I was going to say, clicking and clacking, but just oddball sounds that
sure.
really, on first glance, don't sound like a piano.
Yeah. Well, I think in that situation too, there were so many players, and there was time to just let things breathe.
Blended
and,
in a really interesting way with the modular
Yeah,
synthesizer
really.
of Matt Mitchell and the guitar of Fred Frith.
Yeah.
So that really was an effective place for that kind of preparation. I want to transition to a work with a mixed quintet that you did on a record called Capricorn Climber that you recorded for Clean Feed, I guess, in 2012.
Yep.
So we'll listen to a little bit of this piece, Pass the Magic Hat, and then you'll have to tell me about the title. But it's Matt Maneri, Ingrid Lobrock, Trevor Dunn, and Tom Rainey. That's great. That's great. Pass the Magic Hat is the name of the tune, and the album is Capricorn Climber on Clean Feed. Kris Davis, composer, band leader. Very different than being a solo pianist, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So what was you want to talk about that? I mean, there's so much going on, I almost don't know where to begin.
Yeah, there's two sections to that piece, and we just listened to the second section, which is a solo section for Matt Maneri, and it's a blues, which people often, I'll say that, and then
Love it.
like, really? Wow, I don't hear that at all, which is a huge compliment for me because I was trying to avoid, I wanted to keep the form and sort of the feeling of the blues, the the overall arc of it.
Because you're coming from the church, right?
That's right.
Not really.
Well, maybe. I'm the born again church.
Well, people, I'm sure, will go back and listen to that again with that in mind.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a blues in B, and the idea was to write a form that, or sort of expand the form. So each bar, instead of being maybe like, 4 beats long, is now like 9 beats long or 7 beats long. And it's also has that 12/8 feel. So it's like 9 beats within 12/8. So it's the idea is that it's stretched over this longer period. And the intervals are more, so I was thinking like, how would Morton Feldman like write a blues, So I was using these sort of minor ninths, major sevenths, half steps, to create this sort of interplay between the harmonic and sort of rhythmic content. And then on top of that, the direction was for everyone to leave out, like 80% of their part, so that as we were moving along, we'd just hear little pieces of the form coming out, but it wasn't completely clear that this was like a written material. We were obviously playing over a form, but it wasn't, I wanted to avoid the vamp, like,
Sure.
and just getting,
And
it
the
becoming
obvious
stale.
cyclical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, people would play like a little piece of their line, but we don't actually hear the line come out until towards the end of the form, on the second
Right.
time through the form. And,
Wow.
that was great for Matt, because he didn't know what was coming through in the form, like what he had to interact with or not. And, this direction was, this is a blues. So he sort of plays like
Yeah.
it's a blues, but then there's all this space. And I love the way he plays on
I think
this.
that's a great instruction. Don't play 80% of your part. Well, then why did you do all the work if you don't? Wow, that's really, really, that's interesting. Is this an ongoing group? Such great personalities.
Yeah, it is. We usually have a few concerts throughout the year. We're playing in Iowa, the Iowa Jazz Festival,
Great.
in July, and yeah, a couple times a year.
Do you call this Kris Davis Quintet?
I call it, I guess, yeah, Kris Davis's Capricorn Climber.
I see. Are you Capricorn?
I
Since
am.
your sign? Oh, interesting. So your birthday's coming up.
It is. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're not going to get into the signs of the zodiac right now, so we'll move on and hear another mixed ensemble piece that you did that I just love, and I love the orchestration. It's 4 bass clarinets, organ, piano, guitar, and drums. Who's playing on this? I didn't get that.
Oh yeah, it's Oscar Noriega and Andrew Bishop and Joachim Badenhorst and Ben Goldberg.
Wow.
And
That's a dream team of bass clarinetists.
It really is.
Summit.
They're amazing and wonderful people. And Jim Black on drums and Gary Versace on organ.
Wow.
And my husband Nate Radley on guitar and myself on
Great.
piano.
And you're playing piano. So it's called Union Forever. And it's on a record called Infrasound that you made for Clean Feed.
Yes.
And it's pretty like 2015.
2015.
Great. Union Forever, Kris Davis. Got anything you want to say about that?
I originally wrote this piece for my trio, or collective trio with Ingrid Labrock and Tyshawn Sori. So there's another version of it on the album Union, which is the tune. And then when I wrote it for the bass clarinets, decided to call it Union Forever.
Sounds good.
I wrote a whole new tune. It's got 2 names.
Yeah.
So,
Well, rearrangements are, often recompositions. Aren't they?
yeah.
You reimagined the whole thing.
Right. Yeah. And the section we listen to is through composed. I don't usually work with systems in a way, but this was sort of like specific intervallic ideas. But this started out with 5 notes that, I was sort of struggling to figure out, what material I was going to use to write the piece. So it started out with these 5 notes, and so it's in a 5-group, 5-bar phrase, and there's sort of this kind of ping pong back and forth, and in each of the 5 bars, the material comes together sort of on these triplets, and as we move along, things are added, and then there's some tempo shifts that sort of speed up, so it just feels like we're falling towards this sort of moment of unison, and then it breaks away, and we get a whole new. It's almost like two pieces within the composition.
You can really hear that. That's great. And is this a band that you call Infrasound, or
Yeah, another one where
are you
the
available
title,
for weddings and bar mitzvahs?
of course.
It must be hard to get all those clarinet players together in the same room.
It's really hard.
Not
They
because
don't-
of animosity, but more just everybody lives in
Andrew's
different places.
in Detroit, and
Yeah.
Joachim's in Spain now, and everybody. But the amazing thing is, like, we played Winter Jazz Fest last year, or maybe 2 years ago, and they all came.
Great.
They made it work.
Ben Goldberg lives in the Bay Area, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that
So
must
they're
have been-
just. I mean, it's so like moving, just to see the dedication and like love for the music and for the community and for me.
But also
and,
dedication to that instrument, which is a very particular and difficult.
Yeah, and carrying that thing around. I mean, Andrew had to rent one from University of Michigan, like the contra bass. It's this huge
great.
thing, and like
Yeah.
they really brought it. So
Cool.
I'm very fortunate.
And Clean Feed supported you documenting this.
Clean
piece.
Feed did it. This was a project for the Shifting Foundation. They asked me to write, grant proposal for something that I might not be able to otherwise do. And of course, like writing for a bigger project is expensive. And so this was for that. And then Clean Feed released it.
And you made a number of records for Clean Feed. And they're a Portuguese label, right?
Yes. Yep.
And they've done so many great.
They have.
They've supported
yeah,
so many artists.
Really. Yep. They're so supportive. Pedro Costa is a wonderful person, and he loves the music, and it's just an opportunity for so many artists to get their music out there. So I don't know where we'd be without him and Clean Feed.
Are you still working with Clean Feed?
Yeah, I am. Although I recently set up my own label, just in an effort to try and see if, I'm never sure like how many albums I really sell, and it's always kind of vague. And so I just wanted a clearer sense of that.
So I definitely want to talk to you about starting your own label. It's something that I know a little about, and I'm always curious to hear why and how people do it. But first I want to play something from this record, Waiting for You to Grow, which was another Clean Feed production from 2013. It's a trio with Tom Rainey and John Hebert, and the composition is called Twice Escaped. about Waiting for You to Grow, was that about becoming a mother, maybe? Or
Yeah, I was commissioned to write some music for the Jazz Gallery, and I wanted to write some music for the trio. We were also going on tour, and I was like 7 months pregnant at the time, so
Wow.
it seemed like a good, it was like writing and, having like feeling hiccups going on, and, that's one of the tune titles. It's just, it's sort of takes over your life, and it's
good
really
stuff to write about, though.
Yeah,
It's good
exactly.
compositional.
Yeah, it's very cool. So in the album, there's like a little picture of Benji when he's 3 months, and
Great.
yeah, very like personal record for me.
Yeah, I'd say so. And he's now 3, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yep.
Oh, that's wonderful. And the piece is called Twice Escaped.
Yeah, this one, this is actually a really old tune. I wrote it in 2005, and it's on a quartet record with Tony Malaby and Jeff Davis and Ivan Opsvik. And I just, I wanted sort of a form to play around with, and I've always sort of liked this tune. There's a lot in it, even though I think it's like a 7-bar tune.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seemed like a good time to try it with the trio.
Do you feel like it's something where, would you think of it in terms of being more connected to, quote unquote, the jazz tradition than some of the other music that you write or
Yeah,
make?
totally. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Because it's always interesting to me with improvised music and playing on themes and talking about what jazz is or isn't, and is it even a word we should use, and then so many musicians these days, it seems like we go in and out of various explicit connections to the traditions of jazz and
Right. That's true.
and our heroes. And
Yeah.
would you link that to any number of, well, maybe not even necessarily pianists, but artists that have been important to you?
Well, I was just before I came here, I'm writing an article for Zorn's Arcana paper.
Great.
And I was just writing about this, but Paul Bley has been like a huge influence, and in some ways, I think that this sort of comes out of that sort of
Wow.
love for that music, feeling free, over a form, that it doesn't have to stay within the harmonic material that's there, that you can follow an idea and let that be the thread that you build your improvisation with. And and then on top of this, just playing with Tom and John, who are such good listeners, who, if I go somewhere, they'll know where I am in the form, or if I want them to be harmonically connected to me outside of the form, or if I want them to be more rooted in the piece. So part of that is just feeling trusting enough with the
Right.
people that I play with.
Well, they have deep roots in playing standards and
Exactly.
tunes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Paul Bley, that's interesting. I do think that it's one of the exciting things about music now is that there is that freedom to come and go with forms and not always maintain a strict relationship to a cyclical form,
Right.
and yet still refer to either classic AABA type tunes or the blues or other kinds of forms where musicians seem to be reimagining what the relationships are to
Right.
those things.
Yeah, exactly.
And everyone does it in a personal way. And that's, I think, one of the things that I heard in this piece that I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
So you started your own record label. Congratulations and condolences.
You look thrilled.
It's special. But you opened your label, which is called Pyroclastic, with a great, and I'm sure what will be award-winning recording duo with Craig Taborn. So I guess I don't have to ask why you started the label, but what was the impetus at this time? And is there any reason that this duo project was the thing that instigated starting it?
Um, well, I'd sent it to some labels, and there was always the stipulation of like owning some of the music, and this was another project that was funded by the Shifting Foundation, and it felt like it's sort of it's paid for in a way, so giving it away to someone to make money off of it, it seemed like sort of unnecessary. And at the same time, as much as I love Clean Feed and Pedro and Thirsty Ear, the labels that I've worked with, I just don't, and it's also my fault too. I just don't keep track of how many records I sold and the business side of things. So I was curious to just try to take this on, and of course I have some help with running the label and managing it all, but it's sort of an experiment to see also like who buys the records, and through Bandcamp you get emails, you sort of see who's buying them.
Are there CDs?
There are
then?
CDs.
Yeah.
There's a CD and a DVD in a
great.
package. So.
And they go to pyroclasticrecords.com to find out more, or where do you want to send them?
My website, krisdavis.net.
KrisDavis.net.
Yeah. And
Kris with a K. KrisDavis.
There's links to Bandcamp and Amazon, but I don't know how you have found it, but Bandcamp has been really the best thing.
Yeah, we like Bandcamp.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely a good service, and I also think people who've come to my shows know that I am really adamant about making the CDs available at concerts.
Yeah.
And it was one of the things when I was on a major label for all those years. One of the most frustrating aspects was that they would never show up at a concert.
Yeah.
So I said, when I start my own label, I'm going to make sure there's CD, and sometimes it's not easy.
Right.
But at least, if it doesn't happen, now it's my fault. I can't blame anyone
Sure.
else. But I also think that, like you said, knowing the people that are interacting with your music, that's been a big thing for me and for us as a label. Getting messages from people and being in touch with people, and being able to present the music the way that you want to. But I also think that in this age, it's not just the internet, but in this age where I feel like we all have to be more proactive about living the lives that we want to live, and especially in the political environment we're finding ourselves in, self-determination has become really important in a way that was presaged by artists like Charles Mingus or Charles Tolliver or Stanley Cowell or people that Tim Byrne,
Right.
John Zorn,
Right.
Greg Osby, people that have started their own labels over the years. Branford Marsalis has a label. And I think maybe even label is the wrong word. I think more it's just like take the bull by the horns and
Yeah, exactly.
do what you need to do. And this project, Duopoly, with Craig Taborn, it's interesting to hear you say that you shopped it around and got, whatever, pushback or conditions, and so you put it out yourself. So we'll hear a little bit of this piece that's called Foxfire. Kris Davis and Craig Taborn. I could say something really stupid. Well, I'm not even going to say it. What I was thinking was I would make a joke and say, well, how much of that is improvised? But but I feel like it's obvious that there's some organization going on, and you guys are interacting with it in a really sophisticated and intelligent and graceful and beautiful way.
Yeah, we didn't, there was no rehearsal. We sort of came in, and that was the concept of the project. So the piece has, was through composed piece of sort of these, interacting rhythmic layers and certain sort of pitches, and it didn't happen like that at all. We were like, and we didn't talk about it. It just sort of happened that we, played in the vibe of the piece, and it's realized at the end, like a little bit, you hear a little bit of the written stuff, but maybe 10%. It's pretty
Wow.
open. And we just finished a tour. We played for 2 weeks and played a bunch of new music, and it was sort of a similar experience where we wrote compositions, but it's free to go in and out of things, to play things, to not play things, just to really be in the moment, but have the option to grab.
What Leo Smith said to me, he said, just because you put a piece of music in front of me doesn't mean I'm going to play it.
Right.
I said, okay.
Exactly.
Wow. So wow, that must be amazing. Are there more shows coming up? Are you playing at Winter Jazz Fest?
No, I'm playing with Duopoly. This project is with 8 different duos. So for Winterfest, I'm playing with Tim Byrne and Angelica Sanchez.
Great.
And Billy Drummond. So we're playing duos with each of those people.
What night is that? Is it all in one at one time, or is it 3 separate shows?
It's all at one time. So it's each set is 15 or 20 minutes, and it's on the 7th at 7, I think, for Winterfest. 7th at 7.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember.
You don't know what space it's at. Well, people can find that out. I'll also be playing. I'm playing on the 6th.
Who are you playing with?
With my band High Risk, with Shigeto and Jonathan Marin and Mark Juliana on drums.
Oh, great. Okay, cool.
And lots of artists, both Greenleaf and non-Greenleaf, and Pyroclastic and non-Pyroclastic, will be playing at Winter Jazz Fest. So that's my plug. So it was great hearing all this music and talking to you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great.
And you're now relatively a neighbor of mine in the great state of New York.
I am. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I hope we'll be getting to do some more playing. And this piece that's just coming out of mine, I'm really thrilled that you were able to play on it.
Hopefully you can come over for Sunday pasta dinner.
Ooh, count me in.
Okay, good.
All right, we'll finish that conversation off air, and I'll just say thank you, and we will go out listening to this arrangement that you wrote for a tentet for Tony Malaby's band on a record called Novella on Clean Feed, and it's super fun. It's great.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.